May peace be with you. Chapter 1, World Peace. Do you believe world peace is possible? I believe when every individual finds inner peace, this is world peace. Now, how does every individual then independently obtain inner peace? Would be the follow-up question to that, which is the premise of the book. How do I find, as an individual, perpetual inner peace? And we'll get to the perpetual nature of peace in the next chapter. My friend Joe Latrofa gave me a very nice quote. It says, I strive to find it. I help others try to find it. And if everyone took that mindset, we can achieve it. And that was well said. Every individual must behave in a peaceful manner. I may be thinking this up again in the future, but my mother, one time, I asked her, what does peace mean? And the number one answer she gave, she said 3 things. Number 1, nice. Just be nice. And that has always stuck with me as just the way to do it. Just behave in a peaceful manner, which means to be nice. What needs to be eliminated in society must first be eliminated in the self. Greed, anger, sloth, lust, envy, pride, gluttony. Some are worse than others. Greed, for instance, is the worst of them all. Anger sometimes is used for good. Otherwise, pride is sometimes good to have. To have pride in yourself and your work and your country, and pride can be a good thing. So there are shades of gray, but greed, I think, is the worst of all of them. The greedy are so far from this thing that I wish to achieve. They're so blind by money and blind by possessions, and they purchase peace, but it's ephemeral. So good luck buying more, So chapter 2, peace is a feeling. When do you feel inner peace? When do I feel inner peace? I feel inner peace when I talk about peace. It just is like a constant reminder. And I talk about it all the time. When I say goodbye, I say peace and love. As a constant reminder that, there is this feeling that is peace that I wish to achieve perpetually. And it's dope. So just feel that way. And sometimes it's difficult. But, all feelings are ephemeral, even the down feelings. On the subject of feelings, all emotions are ephemeral. Happiness, sadness, love, joy, they're all ephemeral. They all dissipate. So even when I feel down, I know that feeling is ephemeral. And there are things to remind me, and family and love, and a shoulder to lean on and carry. Burdens are heavy, so share them amongst multiple people. I mean, if you love them and they love you, it's okay. The nature of peace is that it is ephemeral. So is perpetual peace possible? And then I wrote the asymptote of peace, which is a very neat graph that I don't use anymore. It basically says that over time I acquire wisdom and my inner peace goes up, but there's an asymptote. There's a point at which it is 100% in total peace that cannot be achieved because peace is ephemeral. So I can get closer and closer to my goal, which is to say, if I felt peace half of last year, I'd say for about half of that year, I was doing pretty okay. So the next year, I strive for 65%. The next, I met a guy who said, a random conversation at a bar. He said I was at 2% last year, and then I reminded him of a time he bailed out his whole family with lawyers because he was balling out. I said, I bet you felt peace right then. And he's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, all right, well, hopefully next year, that 2% becomes 10%, gradual growth. But there is an asymptote at the top end, which is to say that I will never feel it all the time because something else will happen. Life will happen. As the Buddha would say, we all age, we all get sick, and we all die. And those that we love will age, get sick, and die. And so these are not peaceful. It's very difficult to maintain, I should say. Very difficult to maintain peace during times such as this, or even social loss. I mean, there's so many different things that can take away from your peace. It's literally infinite because new things are popping up all the time. But to regain one's peace is the goal. Over and over and over again. I hope I wrote about the anecdote about the treasure chest. I hope that's in there somewhere. But we'll move on. Number three, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I have since learned that Abraham Maslow himself, let's say, borrowed some ideas from some Native American, I believe the Blackfoot tribe, and their hierarchy is more aligned with my hierarchy because in their hierarchy is the term spiritual needs, and Abraham does not talk about the spirit because there's five: physiological and safety needs. The body must be maintained in order to begin the quest towards peace. Food, water, shelter, safety in the home. Safety being a second chapter. But the physical needs of all people can be met. We can give food, water, and shelter to every human being on the planet. This is not even. I mean, Jeff Bezos is on track to being a trillionaire. I'm pretty sure we can afford as a society food, water, and shelter for all people. Throw in medical care. We'll see. We could provide that for every individual to then begin their track towards finding perpetual inner peace. Because how can I even think about obtaining perpetual inner peace if I am worried about my next meal or my children's next meal, or how am I going to afford the medicine and the food and the gas and the light? What I need priorities here, and now I got debt collectors. Oh my goodness, it's a never-ending cycle. So food, water, and shelter for all human beings as a courtesy. And then from there, they can rise and prosper and seek their purpose. These are later needs and up the hierarchy, but they all begin with having at least that food, water, shelter. And the next chapter would be safety. That would be, I say, walking out of your home and then walking into your home. If I feel unsafe walking out of my home, how can I possibly obtain peace if I'm worried from every which way around me there's danger? So this must be addressed in order to move along the hierarchy. And also fear of walking into your home. Do you, even if it's not a physical, do you feel like emotional? Do you feel fear of any form walking into your home from any person within your home? Because that must be addressed, because one cannot achieve inner peace while feeling fear. These two feelings are opposites. So safety would be the second of the hierarchy, and then third would be, I'm not sure in what order it is. I wrote here self-love first and then social needs, but I think social needs. Let's see which one would come first. If I were to think about it, I'd say self-love. Self-love would be so high on the priority list to obtain perpetual inner peace, I think, because how do I become a person that is worthy of being loved? What is that person like? And let me become that person, and then I can easily love myself, because I could just I like to say Johnny Appleseed. So I'm Johnny Appleseed out here, and I'm spreading my seeds of good, and then every now and again I maybe perhaps snap out of anger, or let's say drop a seed that isn't a seed of the light. But I'm like 10 to 1. I really feel like 10 to 1 is a good number. You know what I'm saying? So I always say I'm like Johnny Appleseed, and my numbers are high. I got a high percentage of seeds of the light versus seeds of the dark that I drop. So that, like, statistically makes it easier for me to love myself, because I can, like, put it on paper. Like, look, I have this many. Well, it's hard to put good deeds and bad deeds on paper, but you know what I mean. Something I wrote here: you cannot pour from the empty cup. And then the LMLML, temper with humility. Wow, it's like one of my first ones, I think. LMLML is let me live my life, and that is a part of self-love, because I began to say that at a point in my life where I felt like everyone was telling me how to do it right, like how to live life well, but nobody was right. And I was like, man, I'm just so sick of listening to every single other person talk about this subject, and nobody here has what I'm looking for. Nobody here has done it correctly, like in my literal physical life. I don't want to throw shade or anything, but I just made the decision. I'm like, listen, I am going to take all of your advice. I'm going to take every bit of advice that I have been given, and I'm going to process it, and I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to make my decision. And when my decision is being made, you must support my decision, because I have decided to do this. You must support me, who has made the decision to do this. Or don't support me. I don't care. I'm going to do it because I'm living my life. Now, I can then say, the flip of that coin would then say a very selfish nature of, let me live my life, I'm going to do whatever I want, da-da-da. But this is not the intention. Neil Loomis told me, temper with humility. and you must be humble, and you must also let other people live their life. So as I'm asking you and really telling you to let me live my life, I'm also encouraging you to live your life, as long as it does not interfere with anyone else living their life. And I think that's fair. As long as you do not get in the way or hurt or harm or somehow detract from another person living their best life, you can live whatever you want to do. So that's my LMLML theory. That really, really helped me. And then I would soften it. I would literally tell this to people, and I would soften it by saying, Lizzie McGuire, Sarah McLachlan, LMNOP. I would say that like softly as like a joke, oh, LMNOP. And people would, or I'd be like, LMLML, LMLML. And people would laugh and it would be funny, but at the same time, like I was dead serious, and I really was telling them to let me live my life because I was sick of listening to everyone else's advice. And I always wanted to listen to my own advice, my own best advice, and you know what? I'm doing okay. Went through a rough patch, but I'm doing okay. I got lucky, let me just say. Another level of the hierarchy would be social needs, importance of family and friends. Your circle of influence, first the self, expanding outward towards the rest. Oh, this is talking about I don't really have a name for it, but my theory where I draw a rainbow, and it's a circular rainbow, and at the center is the dot, and the center is the self. It is invisible. It is the id. It is the I. You are in the center. Outside of that is the red circle. The red circle, I say, is 1 to 5 people. 5 is like a lot, because the red circle is basically saying my peace is dependent on your peace. You must be at peace in order for me to be at peace. So that's why that circle needs to be real tight. And I choose my children, 1, 2, 3, and my mother. This will never change. My 3 children, well, perhaps another child, but we'll see. Outside of that is my orange. And there's red orange. For instance, my niece. My niece is so close to my heart. If she's ever not at peace, how could I possibly be at peace? So she's red orange. And in the orange, I say 1 to 20. 20 is getting to be, really, they're kind of like friends, which is yellow, which is 1 to 100. Because after 100, really, they're acquaintance, which is green, which is infinite. It's just people you've ever encountered in the physical realm. You've sat next to them on a bus or what have you. You encompass the green circles. But people in passing, co-workers, things of this nature. Outside of that is blue, which is when you have heard of someone secondhand. For instance, John Lennon, all of the Beatles. I know of them. I know of their work. I am in their blue circle. Anybody who ever hears my name in the future after it, and they have never physically met me, or is in my blue. Welcome to my blue circle. And then purple, I guess, would be everything else. I don't know. But really, the really core of it is up to green, because realistically, these are the people that you encompass in the real world, and you're around them all the time, and people can leech off you, and people can try to dive in and try to be in your red, and try to dive in and be in your orange. It's like, wait a minute, bro, you're barely a green. Like, you better take 3 steps backwards because you are in my green circle. And that's the theory of the circle of influence, or the responsibility, range of responsibility, I think I call it later on. Yeah, these are the social needs. My friend JW told me once, what if, your aunt just really doesn't like you, and for whatever reason, she just like really just like is mean to you, and like that can like prey on your own self-love. And I say yes. But I said, does she have any good reason why to feel any kind of way towards you? And if there is literally no reason, then I really don't care what this aunt has to say or think, or I don't really care. Is there any like actual reason for this person to be upset with me? Because if not, I wouldn't let that affect my self-love. It's like, why is this person mad at me? I have no idea. So anyway, but you can also find out, like, hey, why are you being mean to me? I don't know. This would be, I have more on this stuff later on, so I just move on. Spiritual needs, fulfilling one's purpose. My goal is to get in touch with the Tao. Ooh, I love that I said that, because that is the goal. I guess I just whisper that now. I don't say that out loud. But to fulfill one's purpose is strange, because what is one's purpose? Does everyone have a purpose? There's a Jewish religion made famous by Madonna. I believe it's called Kabbalah, where that's literally your purpose of being born, is to fulfill your purpose and to enter nirvana. They might have a different name for nirvana, but it's the same thing. Next chapter. Nature, love, God, truth, Tao. I guess this is talking about God. This is an interesting subject, a subject of speculation, but it is fun to speculate. I love to speculate on such things. I think that it is the feeling of love. The feeling of love is God's hand. Nature is God's hand. The light. I think that people share the light with each other, and they share goodness and just kindness and love with each other, and they're sharing this godliness, this God. The Tao gave breath to Qi, which is energy, that makes up the material world. The Tao gave breath to Qi, but the Tao is more than that. The Tao is always more than that. It is the Tao is just a name that we give to a thing that we cannot describe accurately and thoroughly. It is, we call it the Tao because it's easier. For convenience sake, we call it the Tao, but it is more than the Tao. It's always more. It is everything and nothing. It is the atom and the empty space around the atom. Nature is a never-ending cycle of energy. Qi. Nature is a never-ending cycle of energy. Yep, that sounds right. Is there a will of the Tao? I don't know. I don't know if there's a will of the Tao. I just think that the Tao just is, and people do with what they will with the Tao, which is unfortunate, because I think that a lot of people encompass the darkness of the Tao and really do really bad things. But I mean, I don't know if there is a will. It kind of just is, I think. All things in nature act in perfect order. All things in nature act in perfect order. I would say perfect, yeah, because the fly has its purpose, and the ant and the log and everything has its purpose. And it behaves in perfect order, except for man. Man came and threw a monkey wrench in the entire situation. I bet whoever invented the man in the Garden of Eden, the whole rest of nature was really upset with that person, because like, oh, you killed us. The nature of humans, yeah, that's why I bring that up. The perfect order thing is because the nature of humans, we are different. I think that everyone that is a controversial thought, because people would disagree. But I think that humans are just different than any other species. We just act with this malice that I don't think exists anywhere else in nature. I don't know. Chapter 5, the nature of humans. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded and made up of our thoughts. I love this quote from the Buddha. It's actually number 1 and number 2 of the Dhammapada. It states, all that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded and made up of our thoughts. He who acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves him. Now, the shadow is weightless. We just carry this happiness with us. Now, it also states number 2. I believe that is number 2. Number 1, all that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded and made up of our thoughts. He who acts with a I don't know if he says evil thought. He says he who acts with maybe an impure thought. I forget the word he uses. Pain follows him, like a cart that's drawn by the ox. So it's as we spread more seeds of evil, let's just say, we gather more weight in our cart, as we are the ox that pulls it. So we are the ox pulling the cart that is now gathering stones. Every evil deed and evil thought even gathering stones. Yeah, number 1 and number 2 of the Dhammapada. It's good. It's a good book. Our nature is a reflection of everything, of every thought preceding this one. Our nature, like my individual nature, is a thought. Our nature is a reflection of every thought preceding this one. Yes, we are a long journey, long road of each and every thought that we've ever had, a collection of thoughts. Now, sometimes thoughts are thrusted upon us. For instance, if I'm in a dangerous situation and I'm harmed, this is not a thought that I wanted to have. This is a thought that will now live within me forever. But it's, weed the garden. I don't know. But we are unfortunately, one long reflection, one long strand of sequence of events, one long movie, if you will, of every thought. And I think that if you don't remember every thought, your subconscious certainly does. Your subconscious remembers way more than you do. We have had a thought about everything we have ever experienced. Yeah, that's what I was getting to with the example of being harmed. This is an experience, or even joyous experiences are also memorable. I shouldn't just always think of the dark. This is not a good thing. Many joyous experiences, all joyous experiences, childbirths, weddings, birthdays. These are all beautiful, wonderful events, joyous events that we celebrate and we have in our collection of all. And in fact, when you're feeling blue, you should recall the movies of all the wonderful things that have ever happened to you. And if you don't remember them, your subconscious will remember them. Just remember the people you were with and the feeling you were feeling at the time, and draw on that if you're ever feeling down or blue or whatever. Just watch the movie. Watch the movie in your mind of all the wonderful things that have ever happened to you. 5 or 6. Reap what you sow. With every action and every word, we plant a seed in that moment. Oh man, I missed this question. With every action and every word, we plant a seed in that moment. Black and white of varying sizes, many seeds are planted in us by others. Wow, that's a good one. I love this. I was actually thinking about this recently with like the Johnny Appleseed analogy. With every action, every word, we plant a seed in that moment. Yeah, and I hold open the door and I say a kind word, and these are all positive seeds that I was mentioning earlier, my 10 to 1. These are the seeds that I was mentioning specifically. Is I will hold the door open, or I will make a compliment, or I will make a joke, or lighten the mood, or try to sow seeds of goodness. For then you will reap a harvest no matter what seeds you plant. You will always reap the harvest come harvest season. You will always, I forgot what line is. I think it's from Gladiators. In this life or the next, I will enact my revenge, or something like that. But I love that expression. In this life or the next, you will reap your harvest. I promise you. And I think what happens is, when somebody's young, they collect a lot of negative experiences. They do a lot of really bad things, and they don't reap any really bad things happen. But as they age and as they get wiser and they start to see people drawing away from them, and they start to see this life of isolation that they've created for themselves, they will then reap those seeds. So it could take years for this harvest to come, but I promise you, every harvest will come. Every harvest will come. So plant positive light seeds, as many as you can, all the time. Even little ones, lots of little ones. What does it say? Subconscious, spirit, soul. Story of the Uber driver. Oh yeah, that's a good one. What part of the book is that related to, though? Or is that just like a random thing? The subconscious, spirit, soul thing was, I got fired from my job, and I was like, I would take an Uber home. And there was like 2 trains, and it was like a train and a bus. No, it was 2 trains to get there, downtown Chicago. So I took an Uber home, and she was a lovely woman from the Caribbean. I don't know specifically from where, but I said, you know what? I got up on time today, but something just like made me drag my feet and make me 15 minutes late to work. And I said in my mind, I think my subconscious did that to me. My subconscious didn't want me to be there, and my subconscious was like, you're going to get fired today. I'm going to make you 15 minutes late, and you're going to get fired. And then she said, I think your spirit didn't want you to be there. And I was like, wait a minute. That's literally what I thought, except I said the word subconscious. So maybe the subconscious and the spirit are the same thing. And then I said, wait a minute, what is the soul? I said, is that the same thing? So it's just an interesting little anecdote. All right, chapter 7. Inner demons. Our memories haunt us even if we no longer remember them. Oh, of course, especially from childhood. Our inner demons are seeds of evil planted in our past, yeah, and seeds of evil planted by others. And these devils and demons, they manifest, and they're real, bro, and they haunt your dreams, and they're literally demons. They are like literal ghosts, demonic in nature, and haunt you. That's why I always pray to the angel, this archangel, Saint Michael, for protection from I guess the dream demons. I don't know, but from things beyond my control. So If you're ever experiencing such things, pray to the archangel, Saint Michael. Number 8, pain and the cessation of suffering. All people will feel pain, which causes suffering. I can live a life without prolonged suffering. And the Four Noble Truths. Natural pain, avoidable. Old age, sickness, death. Exacerbated pain, avoidable pain. Greed, anger, ignorance. Number 3, the cessation of... I was just talking about this all from the Buddha, if I haven't made that clear. The Buddha awoke. The Buddha was in the forest for 6 years or so, and he received a meal from a stranger, and he sat under the bo tree for 40 days, and he awoke. His first teaching, his first thing he said to a group of ascetics that were his former colleagues was this truth, the Four Noble Truths. One is that we all will age, we all will get sick, and we all will die. And those that we love will age, get sick, and die. These are inevitable truths that we will all experience. This is unavoidable suffering. And how does one feel peace during this time? It's, I would say impossible. But then there's the avoidable. There is, what's the word I'm looking for? Loosely describing what the Buddha would say. But what I interpret as avoidable pain. I wrote it as 3 examples: greed, anger, and ignorance. Greed being probably the worst one of them all. One of the most ancient wisdoms that we have is a Hindu expression that says the devil will use money and power to corrupt the souls of men. It is the most ancient wisdom that exists, and it is still the truth of today. And you can get rich and be like a very good person, but in order to get like really, really rich, you gotta do some shady stuff. You gotta steal from people. You gotta exploit labor. You gotta do some shady stuff to get really, really extremely wealthy. That was a tangent. I apologize. Avoidable. What I put here: exacerbated pain. And we free ourselves of these things. We free ourselves of lust. We free ourselves of jealousy. We free ourselves of hatred and bigotry, and we try to free ourselves of these things because these are avoidable. These do not need to exist within you, and they are avoidable sufferings, and you will suffer because of these things. So just avoid them and address it within yourself and say, maybe I'm a little bit, whatever, gluttonous or lustful or greedy. We all have our vices. Although, doing too many Sudoku puzzles is not a vice that's going to harm you too bad. But anyhow. Cessation of suffering. Wise people do not suffer. Wise in this context would be awakened people would not suffer. But I just said wise because that's more attainable. To say I want you to awake I would say be disingenuous. Because what I really want is for you to gather wisdom within yourself and think about these things and think about what makes me happy and think about what's making me unhappy and think about what's taking away from my peace and what gives me peace and avoidable things that we can free ourselves of. Do I feel fear at all? Do I feel fear every day? Walking in or walking out of my home. This is wisdom. This is to be wise, and this is much more attainable. And then he explains pretty much in detail how to do it. And he says, the Buddha would say, the fourth noble truth is the path to the cessation of suffering, the eightfold path. The eightfold path would be right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Normally they're lumped into 3 categories, which basically, what I love about this one, it says your livelihood. We'll break them one at a time. I got time, right? Thought, right thought. This would be to act in pure thoughts, always trying to help, not harm. And what you think about will eventually be. We manifest all the time. Things that we think about a lot will definitely come to be. So if you dwell on negative things, that negative thing will come to be. So right thought is very important because you want to be thinking positive. You want to be optimistic, which would maybe be a good example of right thought. Right speech, of course, what you say has so much power. They have dozens of examples of a plant would hear negative words versus positive words, and the positive ones will prosper and the negative ones will disintegrate. This is proven science that this is beneficial and also very harmful if the wrong words are spoken. So be very mindful of your own words and your own tone, and be very mindful of your speech. What you say has power, and it is very important. Right action, of course, to always do the right thing and try to be nice and try to be kind, and your actions speak louder than words. So be very mindful of your right action. Right livelihood. I love that the Buddha said this, especially because back then it really wasn't about, like, they didn't have the dynamics of the worker employee employer relationship back then. It was definitely way different. But how do you make your money? Is it exploitative? I remember I did sales for a gym membership, and it was very exploitative. I could sign a little old lady up for a 3-year membership that she's never going to use for like $1,000, or I could not, and that would be like a bad thing to do. But I would make money off of it. I didn't do it. I didn't do that. I just, as an example of something that can happen and has happened, and it's incredibly exploitative. So how do you make your money is very very important. I think that you cannot make a certain amount of money without exploiting labor, without exploiting, taking away benefits and taking away things and taking away these small things little by little to increase your profits. Yeah, this is the nature of the beast. Right livelihood. Yeah, very important. Right effort. Would speak to slothfulness. Right mindfulness. Of course, to always be mindful of the positive and be optimistic, and where your mind is set, whether it's towards the light or towards the dark, it'll get there. So to always have right mindfulness and right concentration also speaks to your focus. Your focus is vital. I don't think I wrote it on this one, but in a later one I talk about your money is traded for your universal currency, which is your energy, effort, and concentration. So where I spend my time, like for instance, I trade my universal currency for actual money at my job. I give them my universal currency, which is my time, my focus, my energy, my effort, and in return they give me actual tangible money. What did that have to do with concentration? I don't know. But yeah, the Eightfold Path. Chapter 9. Humility is the path. Perpetual peace cannot be obtained without humility. I started off saying this. I stopped this question a long time ago, but I don't know why, because humility is the path. It just is. I must be humble in order to learn. I think that's the solution that I've come up with. Because I've always understood the importance of humility, and you need humility to find perpetual inner peace. And there was a missing puzzle, which is like the why, but I always knew it to be true. That one needs to be humble in order to obtain perpetual inner peace, or any form of inner peace that lasts at any length. Because I must be humble in order to learn, and I must learn in order to find this feeling of inner peace perpetually. So I must constantly learn and constantly grow and constantly change and constantly humble myself and realize how small of a insect of a creature that I am on this little blue dot swirling around this infinite universe, which definitely is very humbling. What is this quote here? Through diligence, mindfulness, and discipline, with regard to moral precepts, and control of his senses, let the wise person make an island which no flood can overwhelm. The Buddha. The flood being pain and the 7 deadly sins. I don't know what that means. Through diligence, mindfulness, and discipline. Control of his senses. Yeah, this is how a wise person makes an island which no flood can overwhelm. So the flood that overwhelms my island of peace that I'm living on, I let the wise person make an island which no flood can overwhelm. So I'm building my island with my good intentions and good thoughts and good deeds and right mindfulness and right livelihood and constantly thinking the right thing, doing the right thing, having the right understanding, whatever that means. And then if you have a lustful thought, let's say, all those great things that I have built to accomplish, this one negative thing could topple my island or flood my island, let's say. I must have diligence, mindfulness, and discipline and control of one's senses in order to prevent the island from overflowing. Humility is to be mindful of your impact on the world. Humility is to be mindful of your impact on the world. Yes, and we do have not everyone anyway, but we do not have that much impact on the world. Let's say, as long as if you're not a politician or a celebrity of any sort, you do not have very much control or very much impact on the world at large. But you do have a world that exists that you encompass. And the world that you encompass is your world. And you can impact that world very positively or very negatively. If you are humble, you will affect that world that you encompass positively. Chapter 10. The human tree. The shape of our nervous system resembles a tree, roots and branches. New activities grow new branches in the brain. Diverse branches bring health and happiness. Peace is already within me. We must unearth it. Ooh, man, this is a good thing. I haven't looked at this in forever. The shape of our nervous system resembles a tree. So I always say, put your hands on the back of your neck. This is the trunk of the tree. What is south of the trunk of the tree is the roots. The roots encompass the body. The body is infinitely more complicated than a tree, I know. But at the end of the day, it absolutely resembles flowing branches, flowing roots. And if you think about it, how do I make my fingers sing? I must send a message from my brain, the branches, through the nervous system, through the trunk, down the roots, through my arm and into my fingers, through this root system, through this interconnected system of electricity and chemical reactions. And it all stems from a piece of electricity shooting out of my brain, shooting down my arm and into my fingers. We are electric trees. I don't think I wrote the word electric on this one, but a later revelation perhaps. We are electric trees, and we have these branches inside of our brain. I guess I should bring up the revelation I had. I told JW. I kept telling him there's literal branches in your head. And he's like, no, that is not how that works. There are not literal branches in your head. And I said, man, you're right. So in your brain, there are not physical branches. But in your mind, there are physical branches. Because as the book I read once said, the mind uses the brain to shape the mind. So the mind has these physical branches of whether they go left or whether they go right. They control math, they control motion, they control speech, they control art and music and way you see color, and they control every single part of you, of what you experience and how you experience this world. Your brain controls it through this intricate, interconnected system of branches. And there's a left and there's a right, and then the center is the piece. And in the center, right in the middle where they connect, is where you must concentrate your mind and find that zenful center within you. It is in the literal center of your mind, which is it's only my opinion. I love my tree theory. My tree theory is so fun. Yeah, the mind is shaped, and you know, if I know how to play the guitar very well, that branch of that tree is very strong and grows, you know, well. But that same person, maybe perhaps, you know, would struggle doing calculus, you know, but this other person has a mind that can do calculus like no other. But the tree the branch of the tree that exists for a guitar is a little stub, you know, it's a tiny little stub that exists. But anyhow, yeah, the tree theory. Tree theory is very fun. New activities grow new branches. I like that. Like, for instance, if that calculus person literally learns how to play the guitar, which is, you know, a doable thing that a human can do, that branch grows within their mind. Diverse branches bring health and happiness. I think the diversity of ideas is always an excellent idea. Having a diverse political view and a diverse social view and a diverse music philosophy and a diverse art philosophy. Just diverse ideas, you know. I always consider myself a purple person politically. I try to take the best idea, no matter what party it comes from, and have that be my view and opinion. So do diverse branches bring health and happiness? I don't know. That seems kind of out there. Peace is already within me. We must unearth it. This is actually a good time to... Oh, no, I didn't bring it up. So this is a good time to bring up the chest theory. Peace is already within me. We must unearth it. So I walked into a church, and they were telling this really beautiful story. She was saying how the kingdom of God is like a treasure chest buried in a field. We search for it, and eventually we find it. And then when we go to sleep, and when we wake up, it's back in the field and we have to go find it again. And I love that. I love that expression. And I definitely jacked it and used it for my own purposes, which is to say that inner peace is a treasure chest buried in a field. And sometimes I wake up and I trip over it on the way to brush my teeth in the morning, you know? Sometimes it's right next to me when I wake up. And sometimes it's right next to me for like a week. And then for like no reason at all, the treasure chest is gone and I'm like, man, I really wish I had that treasure chest, and now I'm sad that it's gone. And I'm like, man, how come I can't have the treasure chest all the time? And anyway, we must find it again. It exists. It's still there. It never goes away. It exists. You just have to find it. So that's a treasure chest. It is within me. I must unearth it. I don't know. Number 9, 11, the rainbow. The journey towards peace is like chasing a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There is no end to the rainbow. But when you realize that you are in fact standing on a rainbow, the pot of gold comes to you. Now this is literally true, because if I break light in a prism, a rainbow appears. So all visible light is actually a rainbow. So we are in a walking rainbow all the time. Every day at sunset, a rainbow appears, because when the sun sets, it hits the bubble and it hits the reflection of light, and all light is a rainbow. So we literally live in a rainbow. And when you stop and realize, man, I'm already on a rainbow. I'm on Earth. I could be on a million other planets that are way not the Earth.